The notorious attack on Pearl Harbor. Students learn about it in school, and documentaries and movies are made about it. But some questions still arise, like, what mistakes did the US make? Were there any spies employed by the Japanese? It is a very crucial event in history, so let's explore what are some interesting facts about Pearl Harbor that you might not know of. Hello, welcome to our channel, Eventful Insights. Today, in this video, we'll discover interesting facts about one of the most remembered events in our history, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Together, let's take a closer look at this historical event. Before we begin, we want to know this. Where did you first learn about the attack on Pearl Harbor? Share your answers with us in the comments below. To begin, let's first understand the events that led the Japanese to make such a bold attack on Pearl Harbor. After centuries of being ignored, the 1905 victory from the Russo-Japanese War led Japan to be recognized for their military power. This victory made Japan the first Asian country to beat a European one in modern history. Moving to World War I, when German forces tried to advance into China, Japan joined forces with Britain to push them back. The Allies then gained victory thanks to the Japanese. With this, the Japanese believe that they have leveled with the other major players in the world when it comes to military power. Furthermore, Japan was invited to be one of the countries present in the Paris Peace Conference, although they didn't have a say in the conference. To the Japanese, it meant something that they were present in the meeting. After the war, Japan requested its allies to allow more freedom for Japanese citizens to immigrate to Western countries such as Australia and America. However, this request was turned down, which angered the Japanese. To make matters worse, the USA enacted the Immigration Act of 1924. This restricted the number of immigrants permitted to enter the United States based on their country of origin through a quota system, including the Japanese. Because of this, the Japanese felt that they were still being treated as a second-rate power. When the Great Depression struck America, it also had a significant impact on Japan. The demand for silk decreased, leading to economic hardship. There were even reports of Japanese farmers being so desperate that they had to resort to selling their daughters into prostitution due to the severity of the situation. As the far-right nationalist movement takes action, the military in Japan began to intimidate and undermine parliamentary democracy. Amidst this upheaval, a notable figure emerges: Hideki Tojo. Hideki Tojo was a general in the Imperial Japanese Army who held strong beliefs about Western control over much of Asia. He saw Indonesia under Dutch control, Southeast Asia under French rule, and Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong under British dominion, as well as the Philippines being governed by the United States. In 1931, seeking to bolster its power and support its expanding industries, Japan invaded Manchuria to access its coal and iron resources. This move caused concern among Western nations with interests in the Pacific region. Consequently, they called for an international summit, and some countries pledged to aid China in resisting Japan's advances. The battle lasted for 4 months and ended in a notable defeat for the Japanese forces. Despite widespread criticism from the United States and other nations regarding Japanese aggression, there was reluctance to impose economic or military sanctions against Japan. Despite the criticism, Japan continued to ravage war in China, this time in Nanking. The Japanese are estimated to have killed around 150,000 male prisoners of war, as well as approximately 50,000 male civilians. Additionally, they committed atrocities, such as raping at least 20,000 women and girls of all ages, with many of them suffering mutilation or death during these brutal acts. This later became known as the Rape of Nanking. Meanwhile, in the West, Churchill realizes of the looming threat of a Nazi-dominated Europe and advocates for the United States and Britain to unite in fighting together. However, his appeals are met with reluctance from the Americans. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, aiming to reassure mothers worried about their sons, promises to avoid involvement in the war. All right. Before we continue, how about you let us know what your thoughts are so far? Tell us in the comments below. If you're interested in knowing more about notable events in history or unsolved mysteries, check out our channel. Now let's continue. As a response to their concerns about Japanese expansionism, the US decided to send a clear warning by relocating the heavily stationed Pacific Naval Fleet from California to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Given its strategic importance and the lack of any other major naval base within thousands of miles, this move was undoubtedly perceived as a significant threat by Japan. One admiral in the United States Navy, Admiral James Otto Richardson, expressed disagreement against this plan, believing that the fleet is far from being battle-ready. With this, Roosevelt removes him from command. Now, Admiral Kimmel takes the position of being in charge of the fleet and prepares it for war. While Europe is in turmoil, Tojo joins forces with Hitler and Mussolini, promising to support each other in that time of war. This pact established a defense alliance between the countries, primarily aimed at deterring the United States from becoming involved in the conflict. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the leader of the Japanese Navy, held concerns that the alliance pact could potentially entangle Japan in a conflict against the Allies. Following the fall of France to Germany, Japan seized control of French Vietnam, precisely the scenario that Roosevelt had dreaded. In response to Japan's actions in French Vietnam, Roosevelt implemented strict sanctions by halting all American exports to Japan, including crucial oil shipments. This decision was particularly impactful considering that approximately 80% of Japan's oil supply came from the United States. Following the imposition of harsh sanctions by the United States, Japan's Prime Minister resigned, and Hideki Tojo assumed leadership of the country. Tojo's objective was straightforward. If war with the United States was unavoidable, he aimed to initiate the first strike. Despite Admiral Yamamoto's fear about the feasibility of winning a war against a military superpower like the US, Tojo's strategy was to exhaust America's resolve, as he doubted they possessed the same level of determination as the Japanese people. Initially, the plan was to target the US-held Philippines. However, Admiral Yamamoto proposed a daring alternative, attacking Pearl Harbor directly, aiming for a decisive blow to the heart of the US Navy. Yamamoto believes that they should take out their fleet on the first day if they want to survive a war with the US. Just 12 days before the attack, American intelligence intercepted Japanese secret communications, specifically a message from Admiral Nomura, the Japanese ambassador to the US at the time. This message exposed Tojo's preparations for war, providing a crucial warning to American authorities. 10 days prior to the attack, all military forces in the Pacific received a message which would become one of the most famous in naval history. The message stated, "This dispatch is to be considered a war warning, signaling the imminent threat of conflict." Since Pearl Harbor wasn't listed as a potential target in the warning message, Admiral Kimmel interpreted that he needed to deploy his fleet to support whichever area was under threat of attack. As Admiral Kimmel is at sea, General Walter Short is left in charge of defending the base at Pearl Harbor. Given the substantial Japanese population in Hawaii, Short anticipates a genuine threat from within the island. His suspicions proved to be accurate. Takeo Yoshikawa, a naval officer acting as a spy, has been residing on the island for 8 months, closely monitoring aircraft movements and activities. On December 6, 1941, just 1 day before the attack, the Japanese fleet was approximately 200 miles off the north coast of Hawaii. However, the American fleet stationed at Pearl Harbor remains unaware of their presence. As radar was a new invention at the time, on the day of the attack, 2 privates at Oahu were told to operate their radars for no urgent reason, and they later on detected a huge blob of airplanes at 7:02 a.m. Headquarters reassured them, unaware that about 183 airplanes had been detected by privates. At 7:53 a.m., planes approached Oahu to find an unprepared target. The Japanese launched their attack on Pearl Harbor, first targeting airfields to neutralize defenses. They then decimated the battleship Roe and utilized a new weapon, shallow water torpedoes, specially designed for Pearl Harbor's defenses. USS Arizona was hit, and 1,100 sailors died within moments. However, Admiral Kimmel's troubles escalate further. 30 minutes before the Japanese plane's arrival, he was notified of an enemy submarine being sighted and destroyed near Pearl Harbor. Despite this, he didn't prepare the base for an attack. Realizing his command was likely at an end, Kimmel lamented, "If only one of those bombs had killed me, how much better it would have been." By 9:45 a.m., the attack concluded, leaving 328 American aircraft incapacitated, 19 Navy ships demolished, and 2,403 Americans dead. Following the devastation of the Pacific Fleet, Japan swiftly invaded Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines within the next 24 hours. Their primary objective was securing the valuable oil resources of the Dutch East Indies. However, America's 3 Pacific aircraft carriers were absent from Pearl Harbor, much to Yamamoto's dismay. He acknowledges the vital role of air power at sea and realizes that from this perspective, the assault on Pearl Harbor fails to weaken the United States. Amidst intense anti-Japanese sentiment, Roosevelt seized the moment to rally the nation for war. Following Roosevelt's address to Congress, Hitler retaliates by declaring war on the U.S. Within a week, the U.S. formally enters World War II with plans underway to bomb Tokyo. Remarkably, within 3 months, half of the damaged ships are back in service, and ultimately, all but 3 are fully repaired. Now, America's full military strength is unleashed. And that is it. Those were the interesting facts about the attack on Pearl Harbor. What are your opinions after watching this video? Share it with us in the comments below. If you enjoyed watching this video, give it a like, click subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Thanks for watching.